Hello, my name is Mike Iam, and I'm a product marketing manager in the .NET Developer Solutions Group, product manager for Visual Studio Server that I'll be talking about today. My email alias is on this presentation. You might want to go ahead and write that down now because I'm sure after this presentation you'll have some questions to send me. The title of this presentation is .NET, the Next Generation Source Code Control. The presentation that I'm going to talk about today is not to be shown to customers. If you have customers or partners or any non-Microsoft full-time employee currently viewing this presentation, you need to tell them to go home because this is Microsoft internal only, and I'll discuss in a little bit why that is. But I really felt like I needed to get this information out to the field, and this was my big opportunity to do so. If I missed this MTB webcast, MTB opportunity, it'd be some time before I can get this opportunity to get this out in the field in such a broad audience. So the agenda for the presentation is, again, to reiterate the confidentiality of this new product, version 1 product, give you the current status of Visual SourceSafe and what we're doing with that product and where its future is going. And then I'll talk about Visual Studio Server, give you an overview and drill down into the product to some degree. Talk a little bit about the schedule, what's coming down the road in terms of the beta, and other things that you can get involved in, and then resources and a call to action, some things that you can do and some resources that would help you in your job. So again, this presentation is for Microsoft employees only. The product won't be announced until sometime next year, and I wish I can give you a date. We've slipped with this product so far quite a bit due to some things out of our control, and we won't announce this product to the press, to analysts, to anyone until sometime next year, probably the spring, late spring. If you have enterprise customers today, like Merrill Lynch or Reuters or Morgan Stanley, any customer actually, hopefully more of an enterprise customer, I have been doing, with PSS and TAMs and EPMs, have been doing conference calls on a regular basis with these customers, trying to understand their current SourceSafe problems, working with PSS to resolve those, make those customers happy, and then disclosing to them the next version of the product, which is Visual Studio Server. So far, we've been very successful. Customers appreciate our openness, and the NDA confidentiality is certainly upheld on a one-off basis with these customers. And I think as a team, we come to the realization of where they're at today, where they want to go, where Visual SourceSafe product falls short in scalability and reliability, and how we're addressing those in the next product. So once they kind of get disclosure on Visual Studio Server, they tend to want to stick it out and wait for the service packs for Visual SourceSafe and get on board early with Visual Studio Server. So that opportunity is open to you. All you have to do is work with PSS and myself, send an email, and we'll set up a conference call. Usually it's PSS that sets up the conference call, because the conference call is usually around some major issues that they're having. They're unhappy, they want to leave, and so that's why PSS is involved. So again, this presentation is for Microsoft employees only, so I hope that you respect that. I don't want to spend all of my time talking to the press about leaks and things that aren't true, etc. So the current situation with Visual SourceSafe. Developers are still using Visual SourceSafe today. As you know, it ships in the Visual Studio 7. I have to make sure VSS is an acronym that obviously is for Visual SourceSafe and Visual Studio Server. 11%. PSS currently handles about 150 incidents a month, and their actual minutes are down, as well as the incidents to some degree, from January to June, which means that the service packs are working as customers apply them. We're getting a lot better at supporting this product. It's becoming a much more mature product, and PSS has become very efficient in how they're dealing with any SourceSafe related issues. Remember, SourceSafe is a product that handles customers' code for their applications, so to be treated very gingerly, and we don't like to lose data, and so it's very important that we fix these bugs, we identify them, we fix them, and we keep our customers happy. And I'll explain in the next couple of slides why that is so important for Visual SourceSafe. We've got a lot of prominent customers who actually use Visual SourceSafe. IBM is one of our largest licensees. Sony, EDS, Fujitsu, Hitachi, Dell Online, their online e-commerce site uses it. They do have problems, though. I will be very honest with you. Again, this is a Microsoft-only presentation. They do have issues. We do have a best practices guide on the MSDN website. Very easy to find, msdn.microsoft.com/SAFE. And that's really a culmination of all of our knowledge. Customers who read that and who follow that typically don't have any trouble. There's a lot of best practices on how to set the product up and how to use it properly. Large enterprises actually use Visual SourceSafe, which is kind of counterintuitive. Because the product doesn't scale very well, it doesn't have transactions, there are a lot of issues. But we found that large customers, say Merrill Lynch, for example, 400 or so developers, they tend to break up into groups, many groups of 5, 10, 15, 20 developers. And in that deployment architecture, Visual SourceSafe works actually very well. It's when you were trying to put 400 developers on a single SourceSafe database where you would totally run into problems. There are some issues as the database grows and the team size grows, and those are addressed in the best practice document. We're actually updating that best practice document this month, so we're going to put all the latest information. I think the last time it was updated was in '99, and we're going to update that and put all the new information, the knowledge base articles, etc. in there. There's also some database corruption issues. Because we don't have a transaction-based right, we can potentially lose data. And so there's a tool called Analyze that you run to go ahead and fix all those problems. And that tool is also being enhanced as we speak by PSS and will be released to the web sometime soon. So certainly there's a lot of focus. There's a developer full-time fixing bugs. We've got a test team full-time on Visual SourceSafe. It's not going away, and I'm going to talk about where it is going here in a minute. And I think an FYI, I get about 2 messages a day from the field saying, how do I get the Microsoft source code API? That's the MISKI API that is an API for SourceSafe, because a lot of customers interface to that directly from programs that they write. And it's very, very easy to get. It's free. It doesn't cost anything. You do have to sign an NDA document, a contract document, which is not a big deal, and it's basically unsupported. But it's been around for a long time. There's thousands of people using it, and all you do is have to send an email to MSS-CCI and just put your name, fax, phone, address information, etc. And we'll send you out the document that you need to fax back. It's very simple. So I just thought I'd put that in here because I do get a lot of requests for that, and I just tell them to send email to that alias, which is manned by another team. What are the customer requirements? So let's just jump right into the customer requirements for source code management, or source code control, as it's known by the industry. Certainly support for multiple configurations. You've either got a small development shop, maybe 1 or 2 people, who are pretty much doing a version for each customer, right? You build a small development team, builds an application, ships it to a customer. Another customer comes in and says, yeah, but that's not going to work for me. I need you to make these changes. So potentially they would make those changes specifically for that customer, and they would do this. A large development firm would typically have a lot of developers working on an application, and they would have betas. They would want to branch the code. And the issue is how do you support multiple configurations, go down a particular tree like a patch, have developers working on that, make fixes, and then apply those fixes to the mainstream. Certainly a consistent way to name, view, manage components, data, application systems across the entire life cycle. If we've fallen short anywhere at Microsoft with our developer tools, it's really to embrace the entire life cycle of a development application. And we're doing that with third parties. We're doing that with this Visual Studio Server kind of as the base platform to make it modular and extensible for third parties and ourselves to put in these pieces and to make the full life cycle become a reality. And we'll disclose more about that in the spring in terms of where we're going with our life cycle tools and our enterprise tools. Certainly support for maintaining these relationships across artifacts. We've got some technology that is currently planned to ship in Visual Studio Server that allow us to do rich impact analysis. For instance, for a COM+ assembly, you can find out everything you need to know about that COM+ assembly. When you deploy it, you can find out who's used it, who's calling it, etc. This technology is currently used by the .NET group for the URT team, the Universal Runtime, or the Common Language Runtime as it's called. And without it, they would not know all the interdependencies of each of the assemblies that people are using and how they're being used and who's using them, etc. Because if you want to make a change, you need to know who's that going to impact. who's going to be impacted by that change. Certainly integration with third-party tools and assets. Now, I regret to say that the version 1 recently, we've had to make some tough cuts so we can get this product out the door. The VAPI, the versioning API, is basically being cut from version 1 of the product, which means that we won't have all the third-party solutions with us when we ship to access Visual Studio Server. And that was a tough call, but it's just very difficult right now for us to support that API and test it. We will be working with the top 3 tools vendors, and I'm not going to say who those are because it doesn't really matter, but the top 3 vendors, and we're going to work with them specifically so that they can integrate, because we have to obviously have some integration with the largest tool vendors. But all of the little companies who would, put a web front end in front of Visual Studio Server, etc., probably won't get the opportunity and the code in order to do that. And that was a tough call, and hopefully we can fix that very quickly after we ship, certainly in version 2. Certainly extensibility. We've got to have extensibility. There's a great story with VisualStudio.net and Visual Studio Server that I'll talk about. And then lastly, certainly tools to track your code, your requirements, your specs, your schedule. We're trying to think about the whole development team, not just the developer checking in and checking out code. There's a lot more that takes place when an application is developed, designed, developed, deployed, maintained, etc. Just a little background in terms of how much market is out there for source code management. Here's just a glance at the IDC report on the number of seats, and you can see that it's growing pretty rapidly. Actually, the 2004 numbers are now at 2.6 million. So it's growing very rapidly and quite fast, and so we want to make sure that we're there with a product that goes both from the small end to the enterprise and has the opportunity to gain a lot of that market share. This slide is basically showing you what a typical development team looks like, and this again is pretty quantitative data from some good sources, and it shows that there's certainly a sweet spot around 2 to 5 developers. And as you get over past 40 developers on a specific team, that it goes down to 1 to 2%. So certainly we understand this. We designed the product around this, but we're going to certainly test at around the 100 people level. So a full stress test, long duration, performance test at around the 100 user level. But certainly our sweet spot is about 30 to 40 people. We will definitely test at that level, but we will go as high as 100, maybe even more, to see what the product can take. I'm going to work on some performance and reliability testing with respect to a reference white paper that will help people understand how to configure Visual Studio Server. So managing multiple configurations is the norm. So in this 2 to 5 users, they're going to have multiple configurations. And so that's a given with the product, and we have features like workspaces that address that. So you may know Visual Studio Server from the code name, which is Team Server. And Visual Studio Server has been in the works for a few years now, and we started off on the Exchange store and quickly found out that that wasn't going to work for us, the web store, and moved over to SQL 2000. So we feel very comfortable now basing the destiny of this product on a great, scalable, reliable relational database as SQL Server 2000. The product's focused on the productivity of the team, of the whole development team. It's going to be easy to use, the user interface that you would expect. One of the pluses that we get with Visual SourceSafe is that people really like it. It's easy to use, and we get a lot of customer satisfaction in that area. The extensibility for third-party tools is really going to happen in version 2. That was a recent cut. That was very painful. I kept it in here because without it, we wouldn't be able to do a lot of the things that we need to do. And so the question of is maybe if things go well, we might be able to work with more third parties before we ship than what we originally planned. And it's certainly up for consideration. It's architected. All the code is fresh. It's not any code from Visual SourceSafe. Every line of code, it's architected and built from the ground up, which gave us a lot of benefit. There's some stuff that we did in this product that very few products at Microsoft has done, like using Prefix, which is an execution time testing environment that uncovered thousands of bugs that are already fixed. Those are great things and may accelerate the testing schedule when we get farther down the road. We may find that that was a great investment that's now paying off. And it's architected and targeted at the entire team. So what is the entire team? Developers, testers, so testers do bugs, issue management, analysts, they do, project managers, I guess, is probably, different companies call them different things, but these people want to know, is the project on schedule, where are the issues with the code and the bugs, when are we going to have this product done, when's it stable, etc. And so we have reporting capabilities and access to SQL views so that you can find out everything you ever wanted to know about where you're at. Now, as you know, we know at Microsoft we've built big products like SQL 2000, Windows 2000, Exchange, etc. And we have very extensive reporting mechanisms and methods by which we build software. We try to take some of that knowledge that we think works and try to embed it into this product so that other people can benefit from those and some of the best practices. So hopefully that will, but we've also given them all the flexibility they want to do it any way that they so choose. And it's also part of the Microsoft Extended Repository architecture. So we've got a flexible repository architecture which is best of breed. It's not a predefined schema that everyone has to adhere to. We've got the best of breed stores, and that's a very flexible architecture, and this just fits right into it. So version 1 objectives, we have both strategic and business objectives for Visual Studio Server. Certainly we want to earn the hearts and minds of the larger enterprise customers, an area where we really don't have a lot of market share. Our competitors, Marint and Rational, being the top two, have pretty much taken all of the Visual SourceSafe customers who have outgrown Visual SourceSafe and moved them to their products. It's pretty clear that Visual SourceSafe is not the enterprise tool. It obviously is a known fact that it has a lot of issues with scalability, reliability, and data corruption. So we need to, first and foremost, build a product that's scalable, reliable, and has the feature set that enterprise customers need. And so that's our first priority. We know that we can deliver a product that's easy to use, that'll work for the 2 to 5 developers. We're pretty confident of that. We've got a lot of core competency there. But to branch off and move into the enterprise space, as we are with all our Microsoft products, as we try to win data center and other advanced server products, we're trying to understand exactly what they mean by 24/7 and reliability, etc. And we also need to deliver a platform. When Visual Studio 8 comes out, Visual Studio 9, we want to have the platform and the building blocks that are going to be integrated into this platform and be able to extend and enhance this platform. So when you do something like that, from an architectural standpoint, you make a lot of hard choices. Yeah, it would be nice to have all these little really cool features, right mouse click, print that bug, etc. But all those features take time, and all those features, aren't really the focus of making it scalable and reliable and having all the hooks. So we spend a great deal of time with the API, and the API is in 2 books that are this thick, documenting that, and etc., which is probably good and bad in the sense that we didn't feel like we can publish it and supported it at this early stage. But we made a lot of investments in SQL 2000 and making sure that we do the transactions right, making sure that we can scale this application because it will be hosted someday. And so when you're going to build anything that's going to be hosted, you architect into it the right things that you need to do for stateless connections, etc., etc. So that takes time. That takes commitment. And as Bill and Steve, actually Steve said in his presentation at the company meeting, it takes patience. Yeah, we could have just built all these win-bag features and got the product out the door last year, but it wouldn't have the mature foundation that we need to grow it over the next 5 to 10 years and not have to start over again, which takes a long time. So that's really what this product is about. It's not going to be rich in every single end-user feature in the first version, although we'll catch up quickly in the second version. But it will have the strong, mature building blocks that we can build everything on top of. And you'll see that right away when you see the product. And then from a business standpoint, not only do we need to convert existing Visual SourceSafe customers, but we need to keep those Visual SourceSafe customers that are currently using Visual SourceSafe. So we need everybody. I need your help in the field. I need to enlist you to, make sure you check with your customer. I know certainly your Exchange deployment or your App Center deployment that are coming up and your Windows 2000, those certainly take priority, and Visual SourceSafe isn't, the #1 revenue priority in any account. but certainly spend a small amount of time with the customer saying, well, how is Visual Source Safe? Is there any issues? Is there anything? Because a lot of these customers are silently just moving off of Visual Source Safe, and they're moving off to a competitor. And what we don't realize is that could be more of a strategic move than we've anticipated. In other words, they could then be investing in testing tools and be investing in other life cycle development tools. And so strategically down the road, we're going to lose that customer from our tool set, and potentially, who knows, from .NET. So it's really important that you know if your customer has Visual Source Safe, if they're happy. If they're not happy, you can contact me. I'll make them happy. And it's also important that you keep your eye on the ball with respect to what your customer is doing with Visual Source Safe and where we can make improvements, because this is your opportunity to provide feedback to me that I can then hopefully get into the product. Maybe not version 1, but certainly version 2. And also we need to work on conversion tools, and this is our job, so that we can convert customers from PBCS and ClearCase that have migrated off. So hopefully when we ship, people will say, wow, this is a great product. This is better than what I'm using. If you just had a conversion tool, I'll come back, Microsoft. I'll come back. So we want those people to come back. I put this in there because, I do spend time answering mail, and it's just kind of a great place to put in a slide that says, look, this is some things that you need to know right now. Because I've seen a lot of rumors on the internet in the discussion groups, and frankly, most of it is, if not all of it, is false. It's lies. It's who knows who's making all this stuff up. So here is the truth coming from the product manager. The Visual Source Safe 6.0, that's the current shipping version, will be shipping in Visual Studio.net next year. So Visual Studio 7 is Visual Studio.net, and we will, in the enterprise box, as we have with Visual Studio 6, be shipping Visual Source Safe. Sorry, let me say that again. Visual Source Safe 6.0 will be shipping in the Visual Studio.net box. What does that mean? That means that we fully support MISKI, the API. We're backward compatible, and when you get Visual Studio.net, you will be able to hook that up to Visual Source Safe and do what you've always done in the past, your source code control, check in, check out, etc. Okay? So that is not going away. Visual Source Safe will be on a separate CD. It's not certified for Windows, so it's not going to be advertised, but it will be in the box. It will be on a CD. As I said, we're making upgrades to fix bugs, but we're not doing any architecture changes or any massive features enhancements to Visual Source Safe. So that's why we decided not to worry about the certified for Windows. So I hope that's clear. There will be a CD in the Visual Studio.net box, and you will be able to use Visual Source Safe 6.0, and that'll be available to you. Visual Studio Service Pack 4 addressed many bugs in Visual Source Safe 6.0. So SP5 will also address more bugs, and that'll be out very shortly, I think in October. They're released to the web. So I encourage you to go ahead and look at the bugs that it fixes, and I've shown you how to do that here at the bottom, and see if those address any of your issues and upgrade accordingly. I never recommend that anyone ever just upgrade to a service pack because it's out. I think it's important to see what the service pack fixes, see what the service pack breaks, if anything, and upgrade based on your needs. Just to do a blind upgrade for any service pack for any product, even outside of Microsoft, is really ridiculous. Service packs fix bugs. If you don't have any of those bugs, then I wouldn't upgrade to it. You could introduce yourself some regressions, and that's not something that you want to do. Visual Source Safe 5.0, previous version, and the current version 6.0 run on Windows 2000. There are some small issues that are one-off things, depending on if you even use some of those features, and those are all documented in knowledge-based articles, again, very easy to find on the website that I provided. So I hope that clarifies what's going on with Visual Source Safe. The product is obviously not going away since it's shipping in Visual Studio.net. It is integrated such that if you install Visual Studio.net and install Visual Source Safe, you can then start checking in and checking out code. Now, having said that, Visual Studio Server will ship after, unfortunately, Visual Studio.net, some 4 to 5 months, maybe more after. We do have code for Visual Studio Server, the client piece, in Visual Studio.net. So basically what I'm saying is that when you go out and buy visualstudio.net, you can use SourceSafe or other third parties as your source control database repository. And when Visual Studio Server comes out, it'll probably be a service pack or something that you'll have to run that'll update your client such that now you'll have the ability to check in your code out of Visual Studio Server. We haven't decided exactly how that's going to work. Ideally, we would ship together. We would have our client in the box. You'd be able to install Visual Studio Server, and everybody would be happy, and we would have a personal edition in visualstudio.net, a one-user copy, so that you can see how great Visual Studio Server is, and then hopefully go out and upgrade to the server SKU and get your team on Visual Studio Server. But that's not going to happen. So just some basic messaging goals. Keep our Visual SourceSafe customers. Every customer that we lose is a big opportunity for our competitor in many ways. And so it's very important that you go out and talk to all your customers and find out if they're using Visual SourceSafe, if they're happy, and if they're not, get a hold of me. Let's find out why. Let's fix the bugs. Let's upgrade them to a service pack if that's what's going to help them, and let's do the right thing. Basically, web teams now are starting to be, the norm, and so we've got to gear this product towards web developers, web services, web teams, and that's certainly some of our messaging and some of the features that we'll have. Certainly ease of use. I think we've done a good job here. Microsoft has, a lot of experience in user interface. We're always making great breakthroughs, and we know there's less technical developers, hobbyists, or, somebody who was just a mechanic yesterday is now a developer in Visual Basic, and that happens every day because people are moving into the IT industry at a record pace because this is where the money and the jobs are. So those people are less technical and first-time developers, or certainly people on the development team, analysts, project managers, etc. So through our usability studies and just our experience as a Microsoft product, I think we're going to do a great job in terms of ease of use. I'm going to personally ensure that we make sure that the scalability and reliability are there. I'm going to do some of my own testing, and we're going to make sure that this product scales, that it runs for thousands of hours with no memory leaks and no data corruption, and we're basically going to pound the hell out of this thing and make sure that it is the most reliable, scalable product, because when I go to market with this product and I talk to the analysts and the press, I am going to be very confident in terms of the word enterprise and scalability and reliability, and hopefully set some new standards in this area. Certainly, it's not going to be hard to beat Visual SourceSafe in terms of where we're at today. You can really see why this is a customer-only presentation, since I'm disclosing you some of the intimate secrets and details of where we're at. And again, we have deep integration with visualstudio.net. We're shipping a lot of our code in terms of the client in the beta that's coming up, and we're doing very well there, making our milestones. So we're having all the things there. They'll be dormant until you install Visual Studio Server, and then you'll see these menu items pop up. But we're doing a good job there. So certainly tight integration, and it'll be pretty exciting. So what is our V1 focus? Certainly enterprise teams building web applications, managing multiple configurations, formally tracking issues and design changes, and a single base of operation. What do I mean by that? We've decided in Visual Studio Server to have a centralized database. Our competitors, some of them have a distributed database where they have to rely on replication in order to get, so in other words, they would put a server out in Boston and have the developers in Boston check in their changes there, and then they'd have a developer group in Los Angeles, and those developers would be working on the same project. Someone has to do the merge management, because obviously you've got two databases, they need to be merged together. And we just decided that with the fact that we could optimize the protocol from the client to the server and make that super fast over TCP/IP and the web, that we have a great centralized scalable database, and the fact that more developers are getting higher speed connections, it didn't make any sense to try to do the distributed model at this point. Given the fact that the average team size is well less than 40, it was a tough decision, but we basically felt that for right now, this is a better approach, and will maintain data integrity better and a better customer experience. So we do encourage and allow and support people working off-site off of slow links. We've done a great deal of work supporting low-speed connections. So you'll have a good experience with this product versus what you have today with Visual SourceSafe. So there's three main applications in Visual Studio Server. There's the source code control, and this is essentially the next version of Visual Source Safe, written from scratch with a lot of new concepts and metaphors that will take some time to understand. We've also got issue management. This is all the, if you're familiar with Microsoft RAID or the bug tracking mechanism. And then lastly, we've got component management, a very rich place that you can put your components. You can identify those, find those, reuse those, and from a developer standpoint, we think this is a great benefit. Question in the audience.
Will issue management include escalation?
The question is, will issue management include escalation? We don't have tight integration in with Exchange. We do have integration in with SMTP-based mail. In terms of escalation, I'm not exactly sure where we're at in the feature set with how far we're going with that. But that's certainly, I like to go ahead and take that question down and follow up with you on that in terms of, and maybe drill down a little bit into what do you mean by escalation. So, good question. One thing that's very notable is that all these things are integrated in together. So, for instance, when you file a bug, it will be tied in a check-in set to the code. And so when a developer fixes code, they know what bug they're fixing. And so finding duplicates and having all this put together is certainly makes a lot of sense. Now, it's built on top of this, I like to call it the mature foundation or building blocks of things like versioning store, the linking capabilities, the security, searching, properties, eventing, auditing, backup, and many more. So, we've got this great architecture, and we're building on top of that, and we'll extend that into version 2, obviously, and make it much richer. So let's kind of go into some, I've got some screenshots. I have to tell you that these screenshots are preliminary. Some of them are mock-ups, and they will change. We're still, in our milestone coding, so the product is by no means code complete. But I wanted to give you a flavor for some of the screens and some of the features. So certainly I'll show you the integration with Visual Studio.net. A lot of you in the field have the tech preview bits, and so you know what Visual Studio.net looks like, and so you'll recognize the screen right away. Support for multiple configurations, and I'll show you that. Rich impact analysis. I didn't really put a slide in for the quote, Meteor technology, but I can certainly discuss it. And then architecture, that's kind of implicit. There's nothing really to show there, no screenshot or anything, but you need to know that this is built on SQL 2000. And for those of you who know SQL 2000 or understand all the features, we're going to leverage a lot of the things inherently because we've built on SQL 2000, and that's a great thing. That saved us a lot of development time, and that was a great decision. And then version 2 would be our extensibility story in great depth. So here is Visual Studio.net, and here is essentially an instance of a developer screen where it shows, I've got some little, I don't know what you call those. So the integrated toolbars and menus. So you'll see the check-in, check-out, and all the different toolbars that you need show up there. Full integration with the editor. So we're right inside Visual Studio.net, and we'll have full integration with the editor in terms of changes, etc. We've got integration into the Solution Explorer, and you can see the icons there, checked out exclusively. The different icons will change on your files, so that'll be a very handy feature for developers to know what state, like if a file's locked or checked out by someone else, etc. The team development properties, so we get into Visual Studio.net properties, and we can add our own and do and put up all the properties with respect to the project. The solution changes is a great window for a developer to see exactly what files have changed for when they do a check-in and get more information about those. And then lastly, that dynamic help. A great feature in Visual Studio.net that we've obviously embraced is the fact that help is context sensitive, just like the controls are context sensitive in Visual Studio.net. And the benefit is that whatever you're doing, the help that's going to be available to you will be associated with that. Just like when you're doing a web form, you don't get a Win32 control that is available to you because you can only put web controls on the design surface. So a lot of that knowledge of the state or the context that you're in, we take advantage of with Visual Studio Server. This is the Team Explorer. Let me explain what this is. If you are a Visual Studio.net customer and you then go out and buy Visual Studio Server, you're going to install a client or do some type of an update, whether it's a service pack or we're not exactly sure how it's going to happen, but you're going to get some new fresh bits and a few DLLs that are going to now make it available for you to check in and check out a Visual Studio Server. That's great. That's what I just showed you in that slide. But what if you don't have a license? And we haven't talked about licensing and pricing because those are still up in the air about how we're going to do CALs or per server licensing, etc. And I don't think that's really important to this audience right now, although I'd like some of your feedback if you have any ideas on really what you think customers want in this area. But if you were a project manager or a tester and you don't have Visual Studio.net, how do you get access to all this information? So we have a very rich client. That's a separate client. You'll have to install that, probably do a net setup off of the server. And it will give you, it's basically an instance of the IDE. So we actually have our own instance of the Visual Studio.net IDE. And in there, in that shell, we put all of our menus and features and functions and our Team Explorer. So on your left-hand side here, you see your tree, and you see My Team Places, okay? And those are all your enlistments, so those are your offline types of storages. And then you see your workspaces, so different instances of projects, okay? And I'm not going to go over on the right-hand side. You see your links, and so you can look at your change sets and your related links versus based on what you're currently looking at. So in this case, you've got this particular project open, and you're looking at a spreadsheet that's associated with that in a doc. So this idea of linking things together to give developers and testers more context is a good feature, I think, that people are going to like. So managing configurations, you know, this multiple configurations is the norm. There's no question that from a small development shop that has one version for each customer, which is really the way that they do business, to a larger development shop like a web, like Dell. I met with Dell, and they're basically, you know, doing props and doing builds on their website every day, and each one of those is essentially a version. And when they go and find a bug, they'd like to make sure that gets applied or merged into the main tree. And a particular build is at different stages, so you've got to have a way to say, you know, label it in Visual Source Safe terms to say, you know, this is the state of this particular bit of code, and this is who it's for, and this is what's going on. So the traditional file level branching is very complex. It poses a lot of problems. It does not scale in any sense with respect to time and space because it's making a whole copy of the file. So for large projects, it could be an infinite task. It's also low fidelity. You don't get all of the things associated with when you do that file level branch, which is essentially taking a directory and copying the whole thing to another directory. Right? You're not going to get all the history and the context associated with everything, the bugs, etc. What we've introduced is a simple abstraction called workspaces. And because of the technology and the way we've implemented it, you can branch code in a few milliseconds. You can essentially branch code, and we monitor all of those deltas. So you're not actually making a whole copy of your entire tree, okay, and dealing with that. You're actually making changes. We monitor and we handle all those changes infinitely, and we make it very easy for you to go back and say, I want to take those files and just apply them over here. And so we have a merge conflict resolution window that would come up if there is any merge conflicts, and we deal with that quite nicely in a very elegant user interface. So we have a very high fidelity because we'll maintain all the history and all the information associated with those files or those bugs or those change sets, etc. So very good new technology, certainly a new way to do this, and it's proving to be very fast, very reliable, and to give customers the richest sense of being able to say, you know, let's just go ahead and fork the code right now. Let's fork the code and have this developer go work on this 5 days, and when he gets back, we're going to take those changes and we're going to apply them to the main tree, and it's going to be, you know, a 10-second operation. Before, people looked at that and said, "Ooh, that's going to take a lot of work, right? We're going to have to deal with all of these issues." And we just built that right into the project, and it's not even, you don't even think twice about doing a branch and how quick it's going to be. Issue management. So now we've got the testers now. You know, typically it's tough just to get development teams to use source control. Once you do that, then you really got to try to get them to test the code. And getting them to test the code was, for a lot of people, bugs were put into an Excel spreadsheet and updated once in a while and maybe forgot about. Now we've made it very natural, and I want to use the word natural very clearly because from an interface standpoint, it's very natural to associate the bugs with the code and put them together in such a way that the developer knows what bugs are associated with the code and what problems they're currently having, and the tester knows what code is associated with the bugs. And so there's certainly this tight integration between the bugs and the actual code that it represents, which makes it very reasonable to keep these two together and to do this. So you can do queries, an infinite amount of queries. There's a query design window, which I'm not going to show you because I only have so much time, but you can do free-formatted queries, nested queries. There's pretty much a high flexibility for what you can query and find out how many bugs you have, how many bugs associated with X. You can resolve issues and document the solution, so there's plenty of opportunity to document everything so you can go back. You can add links, as I showed you in the link window, to additional materials and link things together. So like duplicate bugs, for instance, are very easy to do. All of our windows are non-modal compared to some of our customers. So you can be doing a lot of different things at the same time. Making modal windows is an easy way to develop software because at that point you only have one window that you have to deal with. You can't do anything else. Non-modal windows are obviously a lot more difficult because you have to manage state and everything that's going on and know what's updated behind the scenes. So you'll see a great, natural, easy user interface that'll make it quite easy for you to have a bunch of windows open and tiled on your screen to be doing and seeing different things. You can apply fixes to different versions very easily. So there's a lot of right mouse click activity in this product, and I think you'll find it very natural when you want to do something. You didn't have to go to 5 days of training to learn how to use this product. Issue management also has a forms-based issue management. Not everyone has the attributes for a particular bug that we have. So we've done kind of the standard, what's norm in the industry, and made that as kind of the de facto, you get it out of the box. You can go in and take that form, make a copy of it, and enhance it. Add your own fields, your own drop-downs, and you can do all kinds of validation, like, if this field is this, then this field is this, otherwise this kind of thing. Very easy to do, so it supports this hierarchical list values, which is very important. It's fully customizable, has a little editor. You can go in and put your own buttons, your own drop-downs, your own text windows, etc. So you've got full customization. We think that the larger customers will certainly take advantage of this to put attributes in for bugs that we didn't think of for their specific application or business. Smaller firms will probably just use what we have out of the box. For most of those companies, this will be their first time they actually documented any bugs in a way that they can communicate those to a developer. Okay? So things like bulk edit. I mean, just a lot of the things that you would expect in an enterprise shop to have to do, like bulk edit, for instance. You've got a lot of things that you need to do, so you can select all of them and do the bulk edit type of feature. Again, not every feature that I discussed today will make it into the product when we ship late next year or early 2002. And that's why this is a Microsoft-only presentation. We're working as hard as we can to get this product out the door. But because we're doing so much in terms of the foundation and making version 2 and the extensibility with third parties and test tools, build management, and a lot of things, we've had to make some hard cuts, cuts that we're not happy about, but it's a fact of life. So not everything that you see here is going to be in the final product. For instance, bulk edit may be a feature that ends up getting cut if we just don't have time to do it. Now, hopefully, we're prioritizing these features in such a way that, oh yeah, it would be nice to have, this print preview window. I mean, if you think about it, IE 5.5 just got print preview, and in my opinion, it should have been in IE 4. But features that just haven't made it into the product until later versions. And so the prioritization of features is important for me to understand, if we don't do this feature, how many customers will it impact? Will it cause any customers not to buy the product, etc.? So lastly, in the terms of our 3 main services for Visual Studio Server, aka Team Server, we've got component management. So what is component management? It's the ability for a developer to take something, and whatever that developer deems as something, could be a COM+ assembly, could be whatever, and they identify it, and I think they right mouse click in terms of user interface and say make a new component. And I'll show you that screen on the next slide. And then you can go out and there's a way to find components. You can query it a lot of different ways. And then you can go ahead and right mouse click. Once you find the component, you'll get information like how many people have used this, who developed it. Maybe you can have some quantitative information on, whether this is a good developer in your team, I don't know. There's certain things that we can do with this feature, but for the most part, you can easily reuse a component, and I think that's one of the key aspects to make this feature actually usable. It's one thing to say, wow, it's really easy to make a component, boom, stick it off in a database. It's another thing to have metadata and attributes around the component so that people can find it, because if you can't find the component, what's the point? And you may find, like, for instance, a calendar component. You may find a calendar component, there may be 5 of them. Well, which one do you use? And so we're going to try to make it easy for you to decide which one to use based on how many people have actually checked it in, how many people are actually using it. It's one thing to go up to the web and copy something down. It's another thing to install it, and it's another thing to actually use it in production. So we're going to try to identify and delineate all of those so that you can get a better objective opinion on in terms of what things you want to really use. You can go in and quickly install it, edit it, and certainly, again, get usage statistics. So here's, again, a very tentative graphic user interface. This may completely change, but certainly you get an idea of, some component, what team does it belong to, what workspace is it in, who's the primary contact, what's an email, add files to it, what is it that's in this component, what does it do, a description, etc., and then maybe some keywords that are extensible. There's a lot of extensibility in this product. So for instance, on the keywords, there'll be a way that you can easily add your own keywords for your own business knowledge or language that you have within your organization. So there's a lot of extensibility in this product. Issue management is one of the big ones where you can actually change the issue management form completely and redo it however you want. Okay? So what you do is you'd say, basically, this is an ActiveX control. Here's all my stuff. Put the description, primary contact, boom, publish it. And I don't have the rest of the Google screens, which actually, how you find it, etc. But it's very easy to find the component, and it's very easy to get that component extracted and installed in your environment, set up, registered, and ready to go so you could start programming against it. Very key concept. Okay, linking. So what is linking? The ability to add local files to an issue. These files are copied into Visual Studio Server so we can maintain them, right? So anything external then we start to own so that we can keep track of it. Anything that's related in terms of URL links or anything that you want to link to a particular bug or anything, just the capability to link. Certainly duplicate issues is a big one. So for instance, in a link window, you would see if there's any duplicate issues that are close to this bug so that you can help understand the bug more and troubleshoot it. And then when the developer does fix it, they can fix all the symptoms of the bug. And then check-in sets, automatically, it's automated recording of your changes. So everything that's done is automatically recorded and logged so that you can then have knowledge of what happened and certainly associate those bugs with the check-in. So here's an issue of an issue, 5134, which is some bug. And it's a check-in set with that code. It's a Java app, just being funny. Duplicates and related items that are associated with that at all. So it's a single instance window. It tracks things in your VS Global section, and it gives you the ability to see all these in one window, which is really good. And just a real quick thing on the SKU. Again, subject to change. The product is a ways off, and really felt that it was important to disclose this product to you early on so that I can get some champs, get some people involved with this product so that it doesn't just show up one day in beta format or RTM and it's like, whoa, what's this? So this is certainly early on, but the current thinking is to have a server SKU, and we're pretty much set on that. So it's a standalone media, it's a standalone product. We could do it per processor. We have to think about how we want to license it. SQL does per processor licensing, and they also do client licensing as well. It will include SQL 2000 standard because we're going to have to set that up. We use SQL 2000. The Visual Studio Server client, there'll be the integrated client in with Visual Studio.net, and the question is how do you get that? Is it already there? You just turn it on, or is it a service pack in the first service pack? And then there's that standalone Explorer, which is for people who don't have Visual Studio.net to do basically the same types of things. Okay? And then there's the idea that we're thinking about, which is the personal edition. And we've got a lot of reasons for and against to have a personal edition. The personal edition, the idea was that a long time ago we were shipping together with Visual Studio.net. So we would include a personal edition in the Visual Studio.net enterprise box, okay, along with a client CAL. So that we were trying to make more value in the enterprise SKU for VisualStudio.net. So the personal edition would be for developers who work at home, for single developers who need the solution, because we promised developers that the enterprise box is all you need if you're a single developer. And also as a seeding strategy to get people to be aware of Visual Studio Server and hopefully move over and migrate to the real full-blown server that they can have unlimited clients talking to. So that's still, in the works. It's a single user, throttle, limited, however we're going to do that technically, that you have everything you need to go ahead and do issue management, component management, everything for a single developer. And, this is typically a pretty good strategy to get people aware of the product and get them to upgrade to the full server SKU. It's really an evaluation copy for all practical purposes, but it is a full version for that one user who's using it. For application migration, first we need to focus on migrating customers from Visual Source Safe 5 to 6. It's not clear as we get down the road farther and farther how we will support the Visual Source Safe 5.0 customers. At this point, you shouldn't be alarmed. We have all intentions of supporting those customers, but it's always a safe bet that the latest version is the version that we're really focused on. If we have 80% of our customers of 200 and some thousand users on Visual Source Safe 6, and we only have 20% or 10% on Visual Source Safe 5, it's not as major of a focus for us, but we don't want to leave any customers left behind. So it's just a good idea to look at Source Safe 6, all the new features that it's included, it's all on the website obviously, and see if that's something that is worthwhile to migrate to. Okay. Secondly, we're going to have a migration from Visual Source Safe 6 to Visual Studio Server. As of today, we're planning on migrating Visual Source Safe 5.0 customers, but like I said, we could run into some problems late in the game that could cause us to not support Visual Source Safe 5. I don't know that for sure, but it's a safe bet that we will definitely support 6.0, so there's no issue there. And then we also need to focus on where we're going to get either a third party or how we're going to get a tool to help us convert from our competitors. Because if there's a tool that will convert a database from our competitor to Visual Studio Server, or if it's a two-stage process, not ideal, but potentially to convert from our competitor to Visual Source Safe 6.0, and then from there into Visual Studio Server, we will have an opportunity to bring those customers who have left, unhappily I might add. Some of the customers who have left weren't happy about leaving Microsoft, a Microsoft product. But they had no choice. They felt like they had no choice. And I can only talk to so many customers in a day. So the beta program, it's slated for summer. Summer can be anywhere from, depends on where you're at in the world. But, I didn't want to give a specific date, but, think July 4th would be a great celebration, time to beta this product. But it could slip. So I'm just going to put summer of 2001 and leave myself open. Our target is around 400. We can go higher, but that's typically probably a good number for this product. These are all qualified customers. We're not going to do some large marketing beta that you give this to someone on the street in Seattle. These are customers who we've pre-qualified, who we know want to beta this product and who are potentially good Microsoft product betas, people who have beta any Microsoft product and have done a good job. So I've done betas in the past with other products. Yes?
If a person in the field has a customer that would like to belong to this beta,
Yes.
what should they do?
So the question is if a person has someone, a partner, an ISV, a customer, whoever, who needs to be part of this beta, what should they do? And the answer is they should send some email to Mike Eim, and that's going to be later on in my presentation here, which is coming up shortly, on how to get involved. So right now, what PSS is doing, what I'm doing, what everyone is doing, is keeping a list of customers who are potential beta candidates. We are not, and I repeat, this is where you want to wake up, we are not going to a customer and saying, the beta for Visual Studio Server is July of 2001. Would you like to be involved? That's not what we're doing. What we're doing is we're saying, you work with X customer. They're a good customer. They've been on betas before. They've been responsive. They've asked about the next version of Visual Source Safe. They're currently a Visual Source Safe customer. You think, without even asking them, if they might be involved, if they might want to get involved. You give me their name. You give me their information. I put it into a spreadsheet. As time comes up in March or April, it's time to call up these customers via email and say, you've been elected by someone, whoever, doesn't matter, to be in the beta for Visual Studio Server now that we've disclosed it. Are you interested? This is what it is, this is what it entails, etc. And that way, the reason why I like that approach is because there's always a customer that we think about today that would be a great candidate, but because we're not accepting beta candidates yet, we kind of forget about them. Time goes on, and they never get a chance to be in the beta because we lost that opportunity. PSS is working with customers today, and they know that this customer is interested in the next version. But because we didn't sign them up and put them on some tentative list, we forgot all about them. We do the beta. We forgot all about Reuters or whoever, and now we've missed out on a great customer that could have been a great beta candidate. So we've got further metrics, customer segmentation on how we want to do this. I want to do a beta that's fully qualified. In other words, I don't want you to just give me a customer's name because they said they want to be on the beta. I want to know they have the expertise, they have the motivation, et cetera, et cetera. So, I want to make sure we've got good code coverage, feature coverage. I want to make sure we've got coverage within our market segmentation, and I want to make sure we have customers who are really going to. It's better to have 40 customers who provide great feedback than have 400 customers who provide no feedback. So that's kind of the goals. And obviously it'll be on MS Beta, and it'll be easy to submit bugs, and we'll get those into our RAID database, etc. So we'll make a full announcement. Our current plan of record is to make a full announcement at our beta. So if the beta is in July, August, September, we will at that point announce full disclosure on the product, full information, disclose any partner or plans with VSIP, our Visual Studio Integrator Program, any JDP customers, and this is where you come in. This is where you nominate your customer who is, a Visual SourceSafe customer from, the first version, and they want to stay with Microsoft. They provided a lot of feedback in the past, and they would be a perfect JDP customer, a perfect customer to get on board early and work with them even before the beta. Because I'd like to work with some customers in a pre-alpha, or excuse me, a pre-beta kind of a format. And that would be a handful that we can support, a handful that are qualified. They're not going to be a big burden on the development or test team. They're pretty sharp developers, pretty sharp people, and they've done a lot of things like this before with Microsoft, so they're not going to take a lot of our time. The question is any code that we give them, any testing that they do, can that be upgraded to RTM? And I think the answer is no. Unlike what we did with SQL and Windows is, hey, go deploy, this RC candidate in production, and when the RTM version comes out, you can upgrade those servers. You don't have to reformat and reinstall. When you do that kind of upgrade, you get a lot of people who want to be early adopters and go into live production with beta code. So this is 2 more slides, and I'll finish right much on schedule. This is the resources slide. So if you want to find out everything you want to know about Team Server, you should have access to the Team Server website. And I have never tested this, but I'm sure it's just a website that's open to anyone. And there you can find docs and presentations and everything. So just like any Microsoft product, most people have access to the website where the project is taking place. So that information is available to you if you want to snoop around and kind of find out what's going on. There's also a Visual SourceSafe Q&A for current Q&A questions that you need to know about, and that's there at that link. And certainly we update that, or we'll update that with new stuff around this next month. So we've kind of got PSS actually is in town this week, and we're meeting with them around the best practices white paper, the service pack, and things like that. So, there's work being done with Visual SourceSafe. I want everybody to understand that it's not being sold, it's not going away, it's here to stay for some time. Until Visual Studio Server is on its feet and has really picked up market share, Visual SourceSafe will continue to be around. I'm working on a case study for Visual SourceSafe, again, to give that impression to customers and everyone that this product is alive and kicking. And so that's got it's in draft format right now. It's coming along just great. And that'll be up on the website along with the new best practices upgraded doc. There's an internet fact, so there is a community of people around Visual SourceSafe. This is kind of monitored by Microsoft PSS and myself, so it's got good information on it. And that's a link that you might want to check out. There's a lot of information there. And then if you want to contact others beside myself in marketing, There's the product unit manager, who was the dev manager, Christopher Chip Reeves, and the chief architect, Chris Kaler. So if you have any questions that you think pertain to them, you can certainly contact them directly like you can any Microsoft employee. But if you can come through me first, that'd be great, and then I can contact them. Probably be a better. Those guys are busy building and shipping that product. I've got some time on my hands because I'm just a marketing overhead kind of guy right now. And we're certainly working on the visualstudio.net stuff, working on that beta, etc. So not to lower myself here, but the product isn't shipping for some time, so marketing activities are not exactly in high demand right now, although I am trying to get everything done early. What's the call to action? So what should you be doing? Well, the first thing is to send potential customers and partner names for the beta to me. And obviously when you send them, I actually have a share that's on, you probably don't have access to it, that's why I'm not going to give it to you, but which is a spreadsheet. But send me their beta ID, their name, address, phone number, fax number, email address, all the things that I'm going to ask for. Company name, title, all that has to go into the spreadsheet, and if there's anything missing, we always kick it back. So let's just send one email and not a million. Just send me everything about the customer in terms of contact information, and we'll contact them. So that means that you don't have to disclose this product to give me names. You're basically, what you're doing is you're nominating people you think would be good bait candidates without asking them, and most customers aren't going to mind getting a mail from Microsoft, a specific person for that matter, not a whole company, just one person, saying that you use Visual Source Safe today, or you're a candidate recommended by someone. Are you interested? And usually we don't get, we're not sending out mass mailings here. We're sending out targeted people who someone nominated them because they knew there's probably a 90% chance that they would be a good candidate and they would want to be a candidate for the beta. So use your discretion. I'm sure you've done this before with other products. I just want to get this list going early. Chances are those people have moved to different companies or moved to different jobs by the time we get around to contacting them, but at least it's an opportunity. The trickle-in method is a lot better than waiting until we get a day from beta and saying, wow, we don't have anybody, we better go find some customers. And that's when we tend to get the non-qualified customers, because we're anxious to fill up the list, and these customers aren't qualified. I'm also developing a short list. So out of this communication I get to know who you are, and I potentially could follow up and with a customer who looks really good. Some of these might be NDA conversations about Visual Studio Server, but I'm also starting to develop what I call my short list, or my champs, to find out who in the field worldwide are people that I want to focus on when information needs to be disseminated. People in a particular district who are, oh yeah, that's our development guy who handles all development issues, including source code management and et cetera. And so if I know who that person is in a field office, I can work with that person and maybe specifically get their customer into a pre-beta situation. And that's all just by personality, attitude, the right fit, the right time, etc. But right now my list is kind of empty. I just joined the group from back office. Some of you may know me from back office, and I'm just coming up to speed on the product and getting engaged with the field in terms of who my champs are, who my customers are. I've got my old SDR list of 10 customers who are my champs, who have been out twice to review the product and give us design guidelines, and I'll have an SDR number 3 in the fall, or actually the spring, sorry, it wasn't the fall. Slip. For presentation and questions, swap opportunities, we're open to swap opportunities or any interest. Go to this website that's set up for you, and you can fill out a form, and I'll be contacted, etc. So that's a great way to track all this information. I recommend that you go through there. And that'll be up shortly. So by the end of today, tomorrow, the end of tomorrow. So check that. So that's my last slide. Certainly I'd like to summarize with, get involved. I used to be an MCS, Microsoft Consulting Services, so I know what it's like. And I know personally some MCS friends way back, who got involved with product managers, program managers, and who gave customer requirements to the team, who got involved in the specs, made comments, and made really a big impact. I mean, it's one thing to sit in the field and say, that product sucks. My customer doesn't like it. It doesn't. It's time, you take an opportunity, and I'm giving you an open door to get involved, to say, hey, you know, I'm going to take a look at that spec, or I'm going to take a look at this product and see if it has these 3 features that I know my customer needs. And I'm going to communicate those very well, I might add, in some white paper or some document with quantitative data, not just a message that says, product sucks, you need to do this. That doesn't really help me. What I need is ammunition to go to program management to make a design change request and get that feature into the product. So we work together. You're out there directly with customers, talking to them every day. I want to come out and visit your customers, and we're actually thinking about doing something this fall, potentially, to some of our enterprise customers that we've NDA'd to go out right before, you know, the holidays, because we'll have some code that we can demo and show them the product. I'm very anxious to get out and visit 20 customers, enterprise mainly, web developers, to show them this product and to get their feedback on it. And maybe some of that feedback I can get changed in the product, but certainly I can get that into version 2. Because as you know, boy, once you hit code complete and you start fixing some bugs, those key developers are off on version 2, right? The key developers, in order to maintain those developers in your group, they don't like fixing bugs forever. They'll fix bugs for a while, but they need to be out developing the next version of the product. Well, in order to develop the next version of the product, let's say early spring, or late spring, excuse me, I've got to have some specifications. And I'm going to get those through showing this version of the product in late fall this year, when it's hopefully code complete, or early spring, January, February, and saying, look, you know, it's not all perfect, it's not all done, there's still a lot of bugs, but we can go through, just like what we're doing with Visual Studio.net. That tech preview, it worked, but I'll tell you, if you went outside of the path, that thing broke like crazy. But it was enough to see what the product looked like, to see the major features, and to really get a good feel for what Visual Studio.net, right? Beta 1 and on is just more polish and adding things, you know, that weren't in there. But for the most part, the core stuff is there. The core stuff is there. Some little ancillary stuff isn't. So get involved. This is your chance to contact me, send me some email, get involved, make a difference, be one of those people from the field that helps design and implement a product. Be aggressive with nominating your customer for pre-beta or for the beta, whatnot. But, you know, certainly let me know who you are, and from there we can get a dialogue going. I'm not going to be at the MTB, so I won't have a side meeting or anything that I can meet with you. So this is my only chance right now to talk to the field and to get to know you, to get your name in my database, my contact list for Visual Studio Server, so that I know who my go-to people are when I want feedback on a particular item, when I want to decide if I should cut this feature. I like to have somebody I can talk to and get some information. So that's my presentation. I'd like to go ahead and take questions. I think we have some chat. If you're not on chat, you should be on chat.
Okay, this is the only question I see so far in chat. Will there continue to be a free source code controlled product included in Visual Studios? And a little follow-up here. Team server sounds expensive. And will this free product get database corruption issues fixed?
Okay, I can definitely answer that question. So let me, do I need to repeat the question? Let me repeat the question. Will there be a free Visual Studio Server product, or was it Visual Source Safe?
Will there continue to be a free source code?
A free source code, okay. So the answer is, for Visual Studio.net, which is the next version, as I said, Visual Source Safe will be in the enterprise box. So I don't consider that free. I consider that the enterprise box has these products in there, these features, and Visual Source Safe is one of them. So the answer is Visual Source Safe will be in the Visual Studio.net box. Okay? The next question, I'm not good at memorizing.
Will this free product get database corruption issues fixed?
Okay. So now that we've got Visual Source Safe, the same product we have today is going to be in the Visual Studio.net box. Will we get corruption? The answer is probably. The reason is because we haven't re-architected Visual Source Safe. In other words, it's the same product. Now, the bug fixes, the service packs, have been addressing some issues. The analyzer tool is being updated. I mean, there's different things that are being done, but by and large, you'll still get database corruption issues because people will continually reboot their server as they're doing check-ins. People will unplug their power from their server without UPS when they're doing check-ins. There is no transactional integrity. So because there isn't, you will get database corruption. what we're finding is a large part of the database corruption is customer related. It's not necessarily defects in the product. It's people are not doing the best practices. They haven't done a check disk ever on their server, and if they did, they'd be alarmed at how many broken links they have. They don't use NTFS. That's been known to help in some cases. The best practices guide is the best place to start to look at what can you do to minimize the corruption problem. Customers don't have UPSs on their server, so they do get a quick power glitch. The server goes down, comes right back up, and wonder why their database is corrupted. So the answer is use the best practices guide. We're not doing any, we're only doing bug fixes, and as we find more bug fixes that create corruption, certainly those will help. But the short answer is it's not an ideal situation. Next question. I'd like to ask anybody who's currently watching this to ask some more questions because we do have the time. If not, you can send me email or you can go to the EKM website and post your information there as well, correct? Okay.
And we'll wait 1 minute, see if we get any takers.
It'd be great to get feedback in any way, shape, or form. I've been working with a lot of you individually, one-off, with your customer, and I think we've been pretty successful in making your customer feel comfortable that we're going to fix those problems that they're currently having, we're going to give them some best practices and help them, and then we're going to give them a vision for the future that the product that we're going to be coming out with is just incredible. They're going to love it. And I do, like I said, I do want to do a road show. So if you want me to come visit your customer and show them Visual Studio Server, either in the late fall or early spring, haven't decided exactly. It's based on really when I can get a build of the code that I feel comfortable demonstrating and a build of the code that the program managers want me to have. There's an issue about whether they feel comfortably about what I have. So there's a personal, type of thing there of what they feel comfortable going out on the road. We haven't talked about this product to press, analysts, anyone. So please don't go out and tell anybody about Visual Studio Server. Things that you can say, talking points are, we are coming up with a new product to replace Visual Source Safe. We haven't disclosed any of that information yet, but something is coming down the road. We will have a source control management product in VisualStudio.net. I don't want people to get paranoid and think that there's nothing in there. And we've even went as far as to say it's going to be Visual Source Safe because there's no reason to lie at this point. At one point, we were going to have Visual Studio Server in there, and Visual Source Safe was going to be in there, but not even discussed. So if customer asks, you say, oh yeah, it's in CD 12, which is buried underneath, it's inside the manual on page. So the short answer is, we do have a solution for VisualStudio.net, and we're working very hard to identify and fix every single bug in this product to make it as stable and mature and reliable as possible, as humanly possible. But there are architectural flaws like no transaction integrity that make it difficult to have situations where there is not corrupted data. A lot of times it's out of our control. Like, don't turn your computer off as your developers are checking in their code. I don't recommend that. And, mirror your drives. So, no more questions. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope to come back someday in the future and do a webcast where I can do a live demo and show you every little detail of this product. Thank you very much.